A sermon for Tuesday of Holy Week. Jesus had just been welcomed by the crowds in Jerusalem as their king. They'd been with him since he has called Lazarus out of the tomb and raised him from the dead. And when a group of Gentiles arrived, Jesus knew his time has come. It was time to preach about one of the most important, most difficult concepts in the Christian life, that we must live to die and die to live. In very truth I tell you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains that and nothing more. But if it dies, it bears a rich harvest. Whoever loves himself is lost, but he who hates himself in this world will be kept safe for eternal life. If anyone is to serve me, he must follow me. Where I am, there will my servant be. Whoever serves me will be honoured by the Father. Dying to self is probably one of the hardest things we'll have to face. It means we have to allow ourselves to be changed, broken. We have to let go of the many things we've depended on to survive: independence, self-sufficiency, standing on our own 2 feet. The grain of wheat not only represents Jesus' death, but also the death of everyone that wants to follow him. Left to its own devices, a seed won't change. If we leave seeds in the packet in a dry place, forget about them, forget to plant them, which I often do, they'll still be there next year and the year after, although their chances of success will, as they ever get to the ground, will get less and less each time. Seed grains over 3,000 years old have been found in Egyptian tombs, and they look exactly the same as the ones we use today. But if the outer casing is broken, nourishment is added, then something spectacular happens. New life begins. I'm sure we've all done the bean and the damp kitchen roll in a jam jar experiment. Try it if you've not done it lately. Amazing transformation takes place, and what's inside the seed comes alive, grows into something many times its original size. We've only got to think of Jesus' parable of the mustard seed to realise the extent of what's possible. And once that seed starts to grow, it grows taller and stronger if we keep it in the light. Trust to the light while you have it, so that you may become children of the light, says Jesus. Most of us go through life deliberately avoiding hard decisions. Sometimes we are afraid to take chances for God. We have doubts about our own capabilities and gifts. But Jesus tells us that if we trust in him, open up our defences, offer our true selves to God, then we will be amazed at the changes that will happen to us. The cross demonstrates what can be achieved if we focus not only on our glory, but on the glory of God. Jesus is the way that God has chosen to reach us, to bring us to him, the way of sacrificial love. His life story is that grain of wheat that breaks and dies in order to bring in a rich harvest for God. He could have chosen a different way, followed the crowd. Instead, he chose to die for you and me. Today, Jesus calls us to choose that same way of the cross in order to be part of his harvest for God. He encourages us to come alive, take the path to freedom and a new creation. It will be costly. Our old self has to go. We will be tempted to take an easier path, to stay as we are. Even Jesus was tempted. But Jesus promises that if we trust and serve him, are willing to be fed by him, he will help us to grow towards the kingdom. John doesn't say whether the Gentiles took any notice of Jesus, but the Jews certainly got the message. He warns them that time is short. They must respond while the light is still with them. We too need to respond while the light is with us, to risk all in his service, not to be tempted to be put our seed back in the drawer for another year. Are we ready to be broken for God? to be transformed into something beautiful in God's eyes, there is still time.